Welcome to Reddit Story Twist channel. Today we're covering 3 true horror incident Reddit stories, so stay with me till the end and enjoy these chilling stories. Before we start, hit like and subscribe. My wife couldn't have children, but the day she died, she gave birth. Mia had been my wife for 5 years. I never thought I'd find love while hiking, but that's how it happened. I can still remember the moment she was sitting on a bench at a rest stop, fiddling with the frayed lace of her worn-out hiking boots. I offered to help, and after that we walked on together. I don't even know exactly how things unfolded after that, but we fell in love, and 3 years later we got married. It was a joy for both of us, and we even had our honeymoon, and I had never felt so happy in my life. At least not until we decided to have a child. That's when we found out Mia couldn't have children. The doctors diagnosed her with some kind of condition. She was infertile, and it would be impossible for us to have a child together. At first it cast a shadow over our marriage, but after another 3 years, we came to the conclusion that there was life beyond having kids. We decided to simply enjoy each other's company just as we always had. Everything finally settled back into the familiar rhythm we'd had when we first met, until her first illness. Things between us had only just returned to normal, and everything was better than it had been in years. We were happy and full of life again. Then Mia got sick. I don't know what happened to her, but she was always weak, tired, and without energy. Her mood became dull, monotonous, and it was as if dark clouds had gathered above her and wouldn't let the sunlight through. From then on, it was as if Mia wasn't really there with me anymore. She grew thinner and thinner, and I could see less and less awareness in her eyes. Her body had grown so weak that she could only walk with the aid of a cane. Most of the time, she just sat or lay down, as if life itself had left her, or as if her soul was slowly slipping away. No one could tell us what was wrong with her. We went to countless doctors, went through endless treatments, but nothing. Either they found nothing at all, or they could only guess at what the problem might be. Mia barely spoke to me anymore, not because she couldn't, but as if she didn't want to. I even went to see Mia's parents, hoping they might know something. Perhaps she'd had similar problems as a child, or maybe it was some kind of hereditary illness. But then I learned that Mia had been adopted. Her parents had never told anyone, not even her. Their adoption agreement explicitly forbade it. That lead was a dead end too. I would have done anything to make her better, but nothing helped. For weeks I cared for her, trying every medicine, ointment, and treatment the doctors suggested, but nothing worked. In fact, Mia's condition only worsened, and she became like a walking skeleton, her whole body reduced to skin and bone. I tried to feed her, even took her in for 4 treatments to nourish her body, but it was as if she only grew thinner. She could barely shuffle along anymore, and only inside the house. Even climbing a few steps would leave her exhausted. What worried me most was her hair loss. It came out in clumps, peeling away from her scalp as if it had never truly grown there in the first place. In just a few days, her once beautiful blonde hair was marred by large, palm-sized bald patches. As much as I loved Mia, and as willing as I was to care for her for the rest of my life, I was beginning to break. We were still going from doctor to doctor. I must have called every corner of the states, asking if anyone could give me advice, a treatment, anything to make Mia better. We traveled from place to place, and I paid, often a lot, for certain treatments. But nothing brought results. Some of the treatments felt like torture for Mia. Other times there wasn't even the faintest sign of improvement. I was completely at a loss as to what else I could do. Time passed like this until one morning I woke to the sound of Mia coughing violently. I was instantly on my feet, rushing to her side. I dreaded what new thing might have gone wrong, and I was right to be afraid. Mia's teeth had begun to fall out, not all at once, but one by one. Sometimes we'd wake up in the morning to find one missing. Other times she would lose one during the day. It was a horrifying sight. By then, Mia's hair had already fallen out completely. I bought her a wig so people wouldn't stare if we went anywhere, and so she could feel that she was still beautiful in my eyes. But most of the time, she just sat or stood helplessly, the wig slipping into her eyes or askew on her head. She was bald now and nearly toothless. Her weight had dropped to barely 75 pounds, and her muscles had wasted away so much she could hardly hold herself upright. She looked like an old woman at 31. My Mia looked like a 70-year-old, haggard crone. You could hardly recognize her anymore. One day, however, Mia's illness took another turn. Sores began to appear on her body, different kinds, most of them looking as if boils had burst open. They simply appeared out of nowhere. That's when I decided we would try absolutely everything. We went to more doctors, quacks, spiritual healers. I even had a priest bless her. But nothing made any difference. Her condition was terrible. Ulcerated wounds covered her from head to toe. She could barely walk, and even moving at all seemed to take everything out of her. She had no teeth left, and all her hair was gone. The doctors were helpless. No one could tell me what was wrong. Sometimes they kept her in the hospital for a few days, but it never helped. There was no change, and then they told me the thing I had feared most. Mia wouldn't live much longer if things stayed as they were. They told me to spend as much time with her as I could. I did everything I could, but Mia was beyond saving. Her body was being torn apart. And then one morning, the moment I'd been expecting came, but not in the way I thought it would. I was downstairs having breakfast. Mia usually stayed in bed at that hour. A little later, I went up with some food for her, hoping I could coax her into eating something. I'd prepared a small plate of vegetables and blended them into a smoothie, thinking maybe she would manage to drink it. But when I opened our bedroom door, horror greeted me. Our bed was soaked in blood. Mia's legs were covered in it, as was the blanket, shouting. I ripped the covers off her, demanding to know what was happening now. What I hadn't expected was the tiny baby lying between her legs. A child, a little girl. Mia had given birth to a baby girl. I don't know how I processed the whole thing. Maybe I didn't. I might have just convinced myself I had. But life went on. Mia was gone. She'd bled to death there in our bed. They performed an autopsy, ran countless tests and experiments on her, or God knows what else. The doctors told me she couldn't have been pregnant. There wasn't a single sign in her body that she had ever carried a child. And yet the baby was perfectly healthy. It was as if Mia hadn't given birth in some horrific, agonizing state at all. No one could explain it to me, but one thing was certain: this child was my daughter. When Mia and I had still been planning for a child, she had said that if we had a girl, she wanted to name her Elizabeth. So from that day forward, she was Elizabeth to me. Raising a child was brutally hard alone. With the burden and emptiness Mia had left behind, I don't think I could have done it without professional help. I saw a psychologist. I needed to talk to someone about what had happened with Mia. The beginning was incredibly hard, and the next few years were, if possible, even harder. But I loved Elizabeth. She was our child, and I knew Mia would have wanted me to raise her. I never would have thought raising a child could be so easy. Elizabeth was the perfect little angel. Of course, I had help from Mia's adoptive parents and from my own family. But Elizabeth was the kind of child every parent dreams of. She slept through the nights, almost never cried, only when there was truly something wrong. She was rarely sick, ate everything I gave her, and tantrums were completely foreign to her. The years passed. I didn't have much time to dwell on what had happened. Between work, the household, and raising Elizabeth, my days were full. When Elizabeth turned 8, I decided to make some time for myself, or rather for my love life. I started dating a woman named Linda. Her son was in Elizabeth's class, and Linda was also a single parent. She turned out to be great company, and I liked her. But that's when things started to change with Elizabeth. For those few weeks when I was seeing Linda, she hardly seemed like herself. On the days I had dates, she did everything she could to stop me from going or to keep me from leaving with Linda. It went on like that until one day she crossed a line. One evening, Linda and I went out somewhere, leaving Elizabeth and Linda's son with a babysitter. They were in the same class, and at least they could spend the time playing together. But Elizabeth didn't take it well. I later learned that she had spent the night humiliating Linda's son, telling him terrible things about what would happen to him and his mother. What finally ended things with Linda and meant Elizabeth could no longer stay at her school was an act of brutal violence. That night, while Linda and I were at an upscale restaurant, the babysitter called me, frantic and shouting. Elizabeth had mutilated Linda's son. I still don't know exactly how it happened, but she had cut off 3 of his fingers with a kitchen knife. Linda never wanted to see me again, and I was furious with Elizabeth. From that point on, I took Elizabeth to a child psychologist. A lot was determined. The specialist said Elizabeth's extreme behavior was likely due to the absence of her mother, and because she wanted to have me all to herself. Let's just say from then on, both the psychologist and I worked on helping Elizabeth become an ordinary little girl. I transferred her to a new school where no one knew about her past, and I gave up looking for a new relationship. Elizabeth always acted strangely whenever I mentioned someone I had met or was getting to know. It was as if she wasn't herself in those moments, so I let things be. For the next several years, it was just the 2 of us again. When Elizabeth turned 12, things began to get even stranger. The resemblance between her and Mia became almost frightening. I know she was her daughter after all, but it wasn't just her looks. Her personality had become almost identical. She laughed the same way, blushed the same way when I teased her. She wore her hair the way Mia had, and its color seemed to be turning more and more blonde. One late summer day, everything became clear. We were celebrating Elizabeth's 13th birthday. I had organized a small party for her and her friends. I grilled burgers for them in the backyard, and they swam in the pool. After the party, I was in the kitchen washing dishes when Elizabeth came up behind me and hugged me. Then she told me she was going to take a shower. As she turned away, gathering her light brown hair in her hand, I caught sight of the back of her neck. There was a mark there like an old surgical scar. Elizabeth had never had surgery, but Mia had. She told me she'd gotten it in a bicycle accident when she was 13, an accident that nearly left her paralyzed after she fell on her neck. What was an identical scar doing on Elizabeth's neck? Just a few days ago, there had been nothing there. How had it gotten there? My thoughts were racing. I stood frozen in the kitchen as Elizabeth slowly walked away. The realization hit me like ice. Elizabeth wasn't my child, and maybe she wasn't even Mia's. Mia. I called after her as she reached the stairs. What is all this after all these years? Elizabeth stopped slowly. She didn't turn back toward me. She just stood there, one hand on the banister, one foot already on the first step. "Don't call me that, Jack," she said, reproachfully. "I'm Elizabeth now." I keep hearing my daughter call for me at night, but she's never awake. It's been a long week. My wife took a trip upstate to visit her parents, and I stayed behind for work. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal, just a few quiet nights at home with our daughter. She caught something 2 days after her mom left. Just a little fever at first, nothing serious. Kids get bugs all the time, right? And I told my wife not to worry, and I had it under control. The thing is, the fever never really went away. It'll break for a few hours, she'll seem fine, and then it comes back even hotter. She's been too tired to get out of bed for more than a few minutes at a time. I've been camped out on the couch with the baby monitor next to me, so I can hear if she wakes up in the middle of the night. The monitor's old and one of those bulky ones. The speaker hums from the white noise machine we keep in her room. I keep it on even when I don't need to, maybe because the sound makes the house feel less empty. The first time I heard her whisper, I thought she was calling for water past midnight, and I remember the way her voice crackled through the speaker like tired, "Daddy." I went to her room, but she was fast asleep. Her lips were dry, her hair was stuck to her forehead. I almost woke her to check her temperature, but she looked peaceful for once. So I just stood there watching her sleep for a moment and went back to the couch. I told myself I imagined it, probably the monitor catching some old feedback, or maybe just my mind replaying her voice from earlier. It has been an exhausting few days for the both of us, so that wasn't out of the question. That night continued without any more interruptions. The next night is when things took a turn for the worse. I had put her down to sleep around 8 p.m. She was run down and exhausted, body aches, fever, and a headache. I had been giving her medicine throughout the day, and it seemed to only have a slight impact on her. In my mind, the only thing that was going to help was rest, and lots of it. She was asleep not 5 minutes after I put her in the crib. My nightly routine didn't change. I grabbed the pillows and blankets from my bed and headed to the couch to be closer to her room in case she needed me. I plugged the baby monitor in and began to drift off to sleep. I shot up and my daughter was yelling for me, "Daddy, come get me." "I'm coming, baby," I yelled loud enough for her to hear. I made my way down the hallway to her bedroom. I swung the door open, only to find her sleeping. Motionless, I stood there confused, and I couldn't have imagined this again. I stepped into the room, and only the sound of her soft breathing and the white noise machine. I stepped closer to her crib. There she was sleeping, not moving, not coughing, nothing. I didn't want to wake her, but I was shaken. This was weird, scary if I'm being honest. I heard her calling me, and I know I did. This wasn't exhaustion. I returned to the living room confused and worried. Was she talking in her sleep? Was she just seeing if I was nearby? I wasn't sure of what was going on, but I was starting to get worried. I felt fine, but maybe I was getting sick. I did feel a little warm, but had no other symptoms. I swear, just as I was drifting off to sleep, "Daddy, I don't feel good." I didn't answer. I just ran straight to her room, nearly ripping the door off the hinges as I opened it. Sleeping. She was sleeping, and I couldn't believe it. She had to be talking in her sleep. Maybe her fever had gotten worse. I stepped closer, and this time determined to figure out what was going on. I reached into her crib to feel her forehead. I recoiled the moment my hand touched her. Intense heat radiated from her forehead. My hand hurt, and in awe I looked at my palm, a burn mark. My daughter was producing enough heat to burn my hand.